Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am Amanda Farmer and we're going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page, also out to LinkedIn and out to YouTube. How are you all doing? How has your week in Strata been? It is a cold, rainy day, at least where I am today. I know there's a little bit of rain around again around the country. I am keeping toasty warm here. I've got my hoodie on today. I had a meeting with a client by Zoom, as we do these days, and it wasn't until I sat down with Michelle, who joins me on our Zoom meetings and supports me, and turned my camera on, and I went, oh, I've got my hoodie on. I wonder if I should change that for my client meeting. And I decided, no, I'm just going to roll with the hoodie. I'm sure the clients won't mind. And they did not mind, or if they did, they didn't tell me. So they were in their hoodies too. That's just the way that we are these days. I suppose that they're not coming to me for my suit or blazer or even my hoodie. They're coming to me for my legal advice. So here we are, toasty warm in our hoodies on this cold day. I can see lots of you coming on in. Feel free to drop me a hello here in the comments if you are here live with me on Facebook or LinkedIn, or even if you're catching the replay. I always come back around and see who has been able to join us and say hi, unless you drop me a note. I don't know that you're there. I don't know who you are. I would love to see you and welcome you in. We have our regulars, I'm sure, coming on through. Cheryl is here with her bunch of flowers, weekly bunch of flowers. Cheryl, I very much appreciate these flowers that you bring for me each Friday. Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you. Joe is here saying hi with a wave. How you going, Joe? Salvia is here joining us today. Hi there, Salvia. Petra is here saying good afternoon. Always great to see you, Petra. David is here from Neutral Bay saying like the casual look. Thanks, David. I am comfy, I am warm, and if nobody else minds, then I don't mind. I did get a pair of earrings on. At least I got that far. Got some lipstick on too. Peter's saying good to see you in a relaxed state. Good to be in one. It has been a big week, Peter, as I said in my email that went out this afternoon. Lots happening this week, and we are going to dig into that very, very soon. We've got an hour today. This is a Friday Live. We've got time. We've got time to cover all the need to know that I want to bring you that's going on around us in the Strata world this week. Hey, Alan, saying hello. I have, good to see you, Alan. I am just panicking a bit because I can't hit the next comment. Natalie is saying hello. Is that the pool? From the pool bar in Cairns. Awesome. I didn't know you were there. Jealous. I bet you it's warm there, is it? Well, you're in the pool bar, so enjoy. I'm going to just make my screen a bit bigger here so I can see those comments coming on through. Great to have you all with us. Now, who has noticed that we have census data? Have you heard? Have you heard that 2021 census data has been released? I think you might have, unless you're hiding from the media at the moment. And I have read a few articles that say the number of people reported to be living in high rises was unexpected. Unexpected. What a big jump. Wow. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that there was a whole world out here dedicated to strata and community living? Wow. Lots and lots of people, more than 2.5 million people, or 10.3% of Australians now live in apartments. Surprise to some? Not a surprise to us, of course. We've been watching this data for some time. We knew in 2020, because of the good work done by the University of New South Wales, City Futures, Australian Strata Insights report was published in 2020. They told us that there were 2.2 million Australians living in apartments. Another year on, the official data is in 2.5 million people in Australia living in apartments. And apparently for the first time, the 2021 census actually counted the number of stories in apartment blocks. So people were able to let us know if they were living in a building with, I think it was more than nine stories. So you could report that you were in a high-rise building, which is very interesting. And apparently more than 500,000 people live in these high-rises. And Sydney leads the nation in high-density apartment living. We have nearly half of Australia's high-rise population living in Sydney. So there you go. There's some takeaways from the census that you might be reading in the media at the moment. The upshot is that we have seen exponential growth in apartment living, those choosing or needing to live in apartments. And as we all know so well, that exponential growth has brought with it some significant challenges. And I recently asked those of you who follow us here on Facebook, I think I might have put it out to LinkedIn as well, what you thought the top challenges were for owners and residents right now. And last I looked, we had about 29 comments posted under that question. And there were a few that stood out to me. There were a few that were repeated by a few of you, and they stood out to me. And we're going to have a closer look at those in today's session. I have pulled out the comment around the reluctance of strata committees or owners corporations to spend money on repair and maintenance work. That's a big one. There were a few comments about rising levies to deal with increases in building costs and the impact of inflation. That's a significant challenge. And quite a few of you said education, educating new owners who are new to strata, have just bought in, have downsized perhaps from a house, new residents in communities, being able to connect with those people and to share with them the rules of the game, how to play by the rules of the game, who makes the rules, what they are, how we comply with them, and what happens when the rules are broken. Educating new people about all of that was top of your list of challenges. So I've left some time to have a closer look at those later on today. We will definitely get to those. I'm just going to pop over to some more comments here. All right, Christina and Rochelle will let me know if I am missing some comments because I'm not sure if my screen is on the right setting here. Who caught my Today Show segment? Did you see it? Did you blink and did you miss it? Drop me a note if you saw the Today Show segment on Wednesday morning or you've seen the replay that I have shared with you. It was lightning speed. That's what happens on a busy news day. I think it was actually very lucky that I was present in person in the studio, or I would likely have been bumped. I would have been bumped that busy news day. It was pretty cool. I was sitting behind the crew and waiting to go on. And when you're in the studio, you can hear the hosts speaking and hear what they're saying, but you can't hear who they might be interviewing if that person is not there live. So I could just see a screen and I could just see Gloria Allred's mouth moving as they were interviewing her about the Ghislaine Maxwell sentencing. And she's a superstar and a big inspiration for me as a feminist lawyer in the US, very famous. And I was watching her mouth move, but I wasn't able to hear what she was saying. And I was thinking, wow, hard act to follow. If you were watching it live, you would have had Gloria Allred, and then you would have had me talking about the top 5 challenges facing apartment residents. We breeze through leaks, mold, repairs and maintenance, pets, noise, very, very quickly. And if you do want to catch that replay, then you are welcome to head over to the 9 Now website and you'll be able to access that. Sorry for my distraction. I just couldn't find my screen again and I thought I actually closed you and you weren't there, but you are. You are still here. And I'm seeing those comments come on through. Petra's saying she couldn't access the replay. I think if you sign up for a 9 Now account, a free 9 Now account, then you could access the replay there to check it out. 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes worth of watch. Patricia is here saying hello. Good to see you, Patricia. Jan is saying, I saw it, Amanda. It would be great if it became a regular segment. That's very kind of you, Jan. I have to say, you are not the only one who has said that to me. I think it is just so important that the leaders in our space, whoever they are, take every opportunity to talk to the media, especially mainstream media or commercial television, that we take these opportunities to get our voice out there, our issues out there, to talk about strata, to say that word, body corporate, owners corporation, whatever it is that you call it or that you want to call it in your particular state. I recently posted on LinkedIn, I think I put it here on the Facebook page as well, that often when people see me in the media, and if I'm lucky enough, because it is often luck, to be correctly identified as a strata lawyer, then people reach out, and they reach out to me looking for help, and they say, I never knew there was such a thing as a strata lawyer, and I'm so glad that I found you. Now, that is our challenge to take up. That is our problem to solve, both as strata lawyers and as managers and those in the broader sector, to make sure that as many people as possible are aware of our existence as professionals helping people who live in apartment communities, and that the broader community is aware of the challenges that we face, the unique challenges that we face, and often complex challenges. I sat down at that desk with Carl Stefanovic, and we had previously planned with the producer as to what we were going to talk about. And I said to Carl, so will we kick off with Amanda, what is Strata? What's Strata Body Corporate? And he said, no, we won't. That's too complicated. We ain't going to talk about that. So I said, okay, well, we'll just roll. We'll just roll with it. So it is perceived as a complex area. It is those who are working in this space, we can often get a little bit cerebral in our own brains, in our own heads about the issues that we face, and we sometimes are not all that media friendly. So it's difficult to be talking to media or to get a platform to talk to media. So we have to be conscious of that, and we have to approach these opportunities very, very carefully so that we get them again and we continue to have a platform to talk about these issues in a way that can get some attention. So thank you, Jan, for your comment, and watch this space. Watch this space. I'm out there. I'm there for you guys, bringing those concerns to the fore and making sure that we can have these conversations. Paul is saying the same thing. Thank you very much, Paul. There's enough content for years. There is indeed, Paul. And that is why we're up to episode number 319 of the podcast, and why I'm here able to talk to you most weeks for an hour about strata issues. There's always so much, and so much to keep us all engaged and interested. Now, to that end, if your 2.5 minutes of the Today Show, Strata on the Today Show, was not enough, then I have something more for you. Tomorrow, Saturday, I will be chatting to Bill Woods on Sydney's Radio 2GB. 11:40 a.m. tomorrow. That's the plan. Who knows if it will go to plan? We all know how plans can work out. 11:40 a.m. tomorrow, Sydney's 2GB, if that's where you are. I believe it is 873 on the AM dial. Chatting to Bill Woods, who is filling in for Chris Smith. Yes, we're going to be talking strata, hopefully for a decent amount of time, to get into, once again, some of the top challenges that our apartment residents are facing. I've particularly raised the issue with the segment's producer about the need for new purchasers, people who are just buying in, to Strata, living in Strata for the first time, to do their due diligence to understand what kind of community they're buying into so that they're prepared for any surprises like building defects, like special levies, like repair and maintenance, and to ensure that they understand the complexities of our buildings, because we've all been saying for a long time now, if we can get that level of education, of understanding at the purchase stage, then it's going to make all of our lives a lot easier as committee members, as residents, owners, as strata managers, as strata lawyers down the track. So that's something that I hope to be able to talk about on 2GB tomorrow morning. And also I've raised the issue of disability access in our buildings. So we were talking about this on the podcast a few weeks ago, podcast episode about disability access and discrimination in our communities. I have a few clients working with me at the moment on trying to resolve those issues, and it's a complex one. It is a complex one on both sides, both the person who is needing that special access and the community that is potentially faced with the costs of having to upgrade, alter the common property to facilitate that access. So that's always a controversial, perhaps, discussion to be having, and maybe we will get into that tomorrow when I'm chatting with Bill Woods over on 2GB. If you have a question, I'm hoping that we'll have some time to take some talkback callers, and you're available tomorrow morning to listen in. I'd love to hear your names, to hear your voices coming down the line. Please do ring on through. I think have a listen to the segment so that you can get the number to ring through if that's what's happening tomorrow. I think the number is usually 131873 to ring into Radio 2GB. So hopefully I'll have the opportunity to take some questions about Strata. There's always plenty to talk about. Even if we're not getting into our more complex issues, perhaps, of due diligence and disability access, the usual bugbears are always popular. Pets, parties and parking, as we often say, the 3 Ps. And speaking of those usual bugbears, I think that those are often most present in our communities when we do have new residents moving in as tenants or as owner occupiers. And the moment that a new resident moves into a strata building is, I say, a critical one for any community. And if that move-in process is not handled well or is not handled at all, then the weeks after a new resident moves in can look a little bit like this. We have moving boxes and discarded furniture blocking the garbage chute or the bin room, or they're out on the council strip. We have noisy parties until early hours of the morning. There's a new kitty cat running around that no one knows anything about. I use this example because it's just happened in my building. That a tenant has been living in an apartment for quite some time. I'm actually not sure how long they've been there, and we've only just now received the pet application and been able to connect the kitty cat to the tenant. We have residents who might be parking in the visitor parking. So these are just some of the common headaches that we see when we have new residents moving into a community and there's no process around welcoming those residents in, sharing with them what the standards are, the expectations, the bylaws for the community are. Now, if this process is handled well, and I do know buildings out there who are doing this well, then this is the perfect opportunity to meet new residents face to face, have a site contact to make sure that that person knows who the new resident knows who that site contact is, to explain what the standards of the community are, share an up-to-date copy of the bylaws. I saw bylaws attached to a lease a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, with a client, and they would from 1997. They were very clearly not the current bylaws. I knew for a fact they were not the current bylaws of the scheme. So even when tenants are being given bylaws attached to their leases, which is a legal requirement, they may not be getting the current up-to-date copy of the bylaws. So there should be a process around making sure that happens. Walking someone through the building, if you're lucky enough to have a building manager who can do that, or an on-site committee member, walking somebody new through the building to explain, this is where you park and this is where you don't. This is where the bin room is. This is what goes in each bin. This is the form to fill in to seek approval to keep your pet. This is how the gym works. This is how the roof terrace works. Now, in my experience, many buildings don't handle this process at all, and they suffer through those first few months, it can be. And once again, put my hand up. My building has been through this. I've been the one who has gone and said, oh, so you're new, didn't realize you were here. You may not realize that these are some of our rules and some of our expectations. It can take a while. You have those teething issues with new residents. But there are some buildings, on the other hand, out there who I think have this process pretty well nailed. And I would love to share their experience with you and what it is that they've been doing to achieve their success. And I'm going to be doing that at the Smooth Moves event next Thursday, the 7th of July. I'm going to be sharing the experiences of some of the standout buildings with you, explaining how they're managing to achieve their smooth moves, including what they do when things don't quite work out so smoothly. And if you know me, and if you have been in my world for a little while and you've been on some webinars and you've been to some events, you can probably anticipate that bylaws are going to play a big role here. The Smooth Moves event is brought to you by Waverley Council. You can attend absolutely for free, but you do need to be registered to secure your spot. And here is what I haven't said yet. This event is in person, an in-person event. It has been a while since I have been in a room with you all, and I'm very much looking forward to it. It's next Thursday, the 7th of July. We kick off at 6:30 p.m. and it is in Bondi Junction. So the Margaret Whitlam Recreation Centre, which would be well known to those of you who are local to Sydney's eastern suburbs, the Smooth Moves event will be held there at 6:30 p.m. next Thursday, the 7th of July, and I will be there with you for about 90 minutes. We're going to chat about how to ease the pain of the moving in, moving out process, and also talk about the current laws on short-term letting in residential apartment buildings. So Waverley Council has specifically asked me to address that next Thursday. So if you have an interest in that, please do make sure that you come along, and we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. We're going to, I shall make myself available to answer your questions towards the end of the session. We have a link for you to register through Waverley Council's Eventbrite page. It is a free event, but you do need to be registered to secure your spot. And I had a meeting with Waverley a couple of days ago, and those spots are filling up pretty fast. So if you can make it, I would love to see you there, and best to jump in and register for that now. Just seeing a few more of you come in and say hello. Sean is here. Hi, Sean. Hi, Amanda. Great to hear all this. I agree with Jan. It should be a regular segment. Thank you very much, Sean. Debbie, I saw your comment come up, Debbie, as I was talking about that moving in process, and you're saying, I've been bringing this up for years, that we should have a process in place for new tenants, owners, and my committee ignored me. Well, sorry to hear that, Debbie, but I do think it's a key piece in the puzzle that is harmonious community living. I think eventually communities where they have at least long-term tenants eventually find their way around to connecting with people and making sure that slowly, painfully, but surely people understand the rules and the expectations of the community. But it doesn't have to be slow, and it doesn't have to be painful if you have the right tools in place. So that's what I'm going to be sharing next Thursday. I shall be in Sydney in the big smoke again. I'm back here in my cold and wet country home at the moment, but I'll be back in town next Thursday for that Smooth Moves event. Eileen is saying, hello, Amanda from Woollahra. From Woollahra, Beth. Woollahra. Good to see you, Eileen. And Colin has just disappeared off my screen. I saw you there, Colin. Colin says, bylaws are so important. How come lawyers write them in legal speak? Why not two versions? One for owners. Well, I don't think bylaws should be written in legal speak at all, Colin. I agree with you that often they are. And we, Strata lawyers, have got our hands on these rules that were always intended to be understood by owners, by residents, by those in the community, not to be written for courts or for tribunals. And I think over the years of litigation over bylaws and lawyers being concerned to protect their clients, whether those clients are owners corporations or if we're drafting bylaws for owners, to make sure that every angle is covered, that we've chased every rabbit down every hole, and that has resulted in lengthy and complex bylaws. And we do see cases, I talk about this when I run my seminars, we do see cases in our tribunal, in our courts all the time, testing bylaws and testing whether they are valid, whether they may be harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive. We're always conscious as lawyers to make sure we cover off those angles so that the bylaw, if we're the ones drafting it, withstand those kinds of challenges. So that's probably why they've ended up lengthy, why they've ended up in legal speak. But that's our job. That is the job for strata lawyers to do better. We should do better because these are not contracts going out to large corporations. These are rules that are governing people's everyday lives. So they should be understandable. I agree with you. Layla is here saying hi. Nice to see you, Layla. Debbie's also saying hi. I think I saw you there earlier, Debbie. Hey, Charles, saying hi. Layla saying it would be great if there were other owners who were on the same page. Yeah, it's always the hardworking minority, isn't it, Layla? I shouldn't say always. It's often the hardworking minority who are keeping things going in the building and making sure that that new residents are welcomed in, that new residents understand the rules and are engaged in the process of making sure that happens. And I know you may all nod along with that because those owners are you. They are the people who are here learning this information and engaging with what we have to discuss. So preaching to the converted, I know. Henry, always insightful. What's Henry got for me today? Hi, Amanda. The issue is that real estate property managers are not passing the move-in information on to prospective and new tenants. It is so difficult with third parties involved. Yep, I hear that often. Henry, I'm often asked, isn't there a legal obligation for the owners corporation to be told about new tenants? Answer is yes. And the legal obligation, certainly in New South Wales, falls on the owner of the property or the landlord. That is the person under the Strata Schemes Management Act who is required to inform the owners corporation of the details of a new lease. And that needs to be done within a certain period of time of the new lease starting. It's buried there in the legislation. It is a penalty provision if it is not complied with, and a penalty can be ordered. But what we're finding, what the communities I work with are finding, and the strata managers I talk to, is that owners are not aware of that obligation. They may not be told about that obligation by their agent, and they rely on the agent to do all things relevant to the lease. And that's why it's helpful to have that obligation put into a bylaw, because owners and residents are likely to be more aware, I think it's fair to say, of what their bylaws say than what the Strata Schemes Management Act or relevant piece of complicated, convoluted legislation says. So that's why the bylaws that I prepare and that I make available through the seminars that I do with local councils certainly include a clause making clear that the owner is responsible for giving that information about the new tenant to the owners corporation. And we do have provisions in bylaws that I'm going to show you at the event next Thursday that require that information to be provided within a certain period of time. These are provisions that we make sure don't conflict with the Act, but they certainly make very clear in the bylaw what the requirement is to notify, when this notification should be made, and also requiring the resident, whether they are an owner-occupier or they are a tenant, to make contact with someone within the first few days of moving in to the building so that they can go through that induction process of being shown around the building and understanding what all the requirements are. So these are clauses that we have put into the bylaw to really step through or assist buildings to step through that process. So those who are joining me at the Smooth Moves event on Thursday will be able to access those tools. And there will be some of you here who have perhaps been at previous event or who are members inside our community who already have access to those tools. So if you're not sure, reach out to me and I'll point you in the right direction. Kathy's saying, I agree with Henry, this is a real issue. Yep. David's saying, agree with Henry. There is not enough synergy between strata plan managers and property management. Yep. Yep, I hear you, David. Okay. Ron is saying, hi, Amanda. I am in a complex with 23 townhouses. All owners could do with an education process of what it means to live in a strata title complex. The committee walks around thinking they own the place. Owners expect the strata manager to fix everything. Yes, that came up as well, Ron. I was saying earlier when I posted on this page about some top challenges. What are the top challenges that people are facing in strata? Definitely education all round was coming at us loud and clear. I'm going to revisit that in a little while in today's session. Paul is saying, even when people are given the welcome to blah blah booklet, it seems to me they don't bother reading them anyway. Yep, I understand that happens, Paul. The benefit of having the welcome to blah blah booklet is that you have the opportunity to connect, or you have that reason for connecting with a new resident. You have something to give them. That's not a box of cookies. That's not baked lasagna or things that other people might do when they're meeting new neighbors. It's saying, here is our welcome pack with our bylaws, with our contact information for contractors, for committee members. It's here, it has been given to you. Whether it is read or not is obviously up to the person who is receiving it. But when there's a problem, when there's a breach of the bylaws, when there is the wrong things in the wrong bins, when somebody is not parking in the right space or abusing the visitor parking, the committee can proceed, I say, in good conscience and comfortably knowing that this person has been made aware. They have been made well aware, or given at least the opportunity to be aware of what the rules are for this building, and where there is then a flouting of those rules, a breach of those rules, then the owners corporation should confidently proceed with enforcement action, rather than delaying perhaps the process of a back and forth communication about what the bylaw is, whether they're aware of the bylaw. I didn't know, I didn't get. If you're following this process of welcoming people in consistently, then you can rely on that and say, well, you've been through the induction process, you've been given the pack, you're aware of the bylaws, so we're going to immediately proceed with a notice to comply if you're in New South Wales, and that's the process that you follow to enforce your bylaws. So I get told all the time, we send notices, we send letters, they get ignored. I always say that's no reason not to. That's no reason not to do it, because if you remain consistent, and I appreciate it's exhausting, if you remain consistent, then particularly in the most difficult of cases, that following through that legal process is the avenue and does get the result that you need. I've seen many buildings go through that process successfully. You've got to start somewhere, and I think issuing the welcome pack is a good place to start, a welcome pack or something similar. Okay, lots of conversation around here in the comments. I like this from Colleen. Amanda, we are a very proactive strata committee. We make a point of welcoming new residents, owners and tenants, and providing bylaws, albeit they are currently not up to date. Good thing to note there, Colleen. Time to update that welcome pack and making sure that it's got the correct bylaws in there. Good to hear. Good to hear that positive note there. Okay. All right. There's more comments there, but I'm not sure. There's a lot going on today. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get through all of them. It is today, the 1st of July. And to me, that means that yesterday, new regulations commenced in New South Wales, requiring our owners corporations to engage in mandatory annual reporting. If you are a strata manager and you're hearing this for the first time, you got some catching up to do. Better get your skates on, but I'm going to help you with that. If you are a strata manager who says, yes, Amanda, we've been talking about mandatory annual reporting for 6 months, certainly here on this page, and I'm ready to roll, good on you, because the time is now. Our new regulation has commenced, and there is an information education event that I just found out about today, which the New South Wales Department of Customer Service is hosting, and it sounds fantastic. I immediately put it on the list to let you know about, and I encourage you to book into this before it books out. I know there was a New South Wales government webinar on electric vehicle charging a month or so ago, and many of you told me that it booked out pretty quick. So hopefully they've lifted that cap on whatever their software program is able to facilitate for a webinar, which is what this event is. It's happening on the 20th of July at midday, and it is an event to assist strata schemes, strata managers, committees, owners to navigate this change to the laws. There is a Q&A session, a panel discussion on what the new mandatory reporting requirements will mean for New South Wales strata communities. There are expert panelists who can answer your questions and share their insights. The panel includes John Minns, who is the New South Wales Property Services Commissioner, David Chandler, our New South Wales Building Commissioner, Kerry Burgess, the Director of Program Delivery at the Department of Customer Service, Karen Stiles, the Executive Officer of the Owners Corporation Network, and Stephen Brell, President of Strata Community Association, New South Wales. We have a link for you to register for this free online event, and Christina and Rochelle will just pop it into the comments here for me. And when I look over at the registration page, I can see that you could also submit some questions to the panel in advance, which is pretty cool. So there's an email address there for you if you wanted to submit any questions in advance. So I was talking to a strata manager earlier this week who is running a small business and said, oh, Amanda, I'm really not across these annual reporting requirements. And I said, well, you better get across them. This is a great event to go to for that purpose. There's also a toolkit that the New South Wales government has produced around mandatory annual reporting, and it includes some material that you as strata managers, committee members, certainly if you're self-managed or want to be answering questions for residents about this process, that you can rely on and distribute through your communities or through your clients' communities. So there's a link to the communication toolkit, which we will pop in the comments here on Facebook. And for an overall understanding of what the heck I'm talking about, mandatory annual reporting, have a listen to podcast episode number 294, which I published towards the end of last year when this legislation was first made. It was made 6 months ago, commenced now, and I give a detailed summary of what the reporting requirements are, how they all work, what they're all about, what we need to report and when in that podcast episode. Now, I am wondering how many of you are aware of a change to the reporting requirement, which I only picked up within the last couple of days. I'm going to share my screen with you and take you over to this webpage, which we will also put in the comments so you can go and check it out. This is your summary and access to additional information about this annual reporting requirement for New South Wales owners corporations. What I wanted to show you in particular is this question of privacy and who can access the information that is reported and the information that will ultimately be on the Strata hub. Now, we were talking a month or so ago about concerns by committee members, chairs, I think is the correct word, chairs and secretaries, that their personal details would be made available on the Strata hub. Yes, the legislation is quite clear that those details could only be accessed by other owners, those named on the Strata roll, the Strata manager, the building manager, and emergency services. But the requirement was to report and make accessible the name, email address, and phone number for the chair and the secretary. And apparently this has now changed, or is going to be changed, because of concerns that have been raised by committee members about privacy and about having these details disclosed. We had a bit of a back and forth discussion about that here on live, I think, one week, where I raised the question, are we really concerned? Are we really, isn't it the fact that people in the community are aware, and if not, maybe should be aware of how to contact their chair and their secretary? But I sensed it was a controversial issue. Some people don't want their phone numbers, for example, to be accessible to tenants and to others who might be named on the Strata roll. So if you go to this website and you have a look at this privacy and who can access the information section, it says this now: the secretary and chairperson's phone numbers will not be disclosed. So that's a change, as I understand it, and I haven't gone to look at the final version of the regulation as it has been made or amended to see how that has been changed. That's only just come to my attention. So not sure if that was common knowledge to others and I missed that, or whether that's a new change. But the information still needs to be reported, but it won't be disclosed. Only one emergency services contact is needed, but your Strata scheme can provide more. And I suppose that the information for the emergency services contact is disclosed to emergency services. So worth having a look at that. And if you have clients who have been, if you're a Strata manager and you've had clients who have been concerned about the disclosure of their personal information, maybe giving them some comfort there that this has been changed. And certainly attending that webinar that is on the 20th of July to have your questions answered and to get updates on how this is all rolling out is a good idea. I've just seen a comment there from Petra saying, already registered. Awesome. Good to hear, Petra. Okay, I'm just making sure that I have covered what I wanted to on that topic here in my notes. I think we are good indeed. Now, I opened our chat by talking about the exponential growth of our apartment sector, more and more people living in apartments, as has been revealed, confirmed, I like to say, confirmed in our census data. And with that, I've said, comes increasing challenges. And I want to have a closer look at some of the challenges that you've told me are important to you and that you have been facing recently. Before I do that, I am just being drawn over here to Michael's comment that says this change was made 10 days ago after the user trial was done. Awesome. Awesome to hear that, Michael. Thank you very much. I just picked it up in an email today. Love this place. Love the sharing that we have here. David is saying, just before I get off this topic of reporting and details, David's saying phone and email disclosure. We have a domain for the building and all committee members have a building email address. This also means the formal email address, secretary @ in our case, can be handed from person to person or indeed accessed by any or all committee members. You could set up a Gmail address to do the same thing. Yeah, I have heard that in a number of communities, David, and I think yours does it quite well. My understanding is that you're self-managed as well, which probably means that you need to be on top of all of this. And I think in terms of tech, you guys do a really good job there. So good tips there for anyone who wants to separate their email communications from their secretary or chair hat to their personal. And Patrina is saying, my husband is the secretary, but also the director of an emergency department. He doesn't want his phone number accessible as his phone never stops. Yeah, I can imagine. Important job there. All right, so thank you very much for those additions. Anyone coming back around and catching the replay, feel free to share your comments in here as well. Our challenges that I saw coming up again and again when I asked that question on this page earlier in the week. It feels like weeks ago. It's been a big week. I think it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. There were a few recurring comments. So one of them was about the reluctance of strata committees, I think is one way that it was put, but I'll say owners corporations to approve repair and maintenance work because they want to keep levies down. Now, a lot of my work, I hesitate to say most, but it's possibly most, but a lot of my work as a lawyer in this space revolves around just exactly this issue, the failure to repair and maintain common property because of a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding of the legal obligation, the unavoidable legal obligation to do so. Or perhaps there is an understanding and an acknowledgement that this is a legal obligation, but an unwillingness to do the work because it's going to be expensive, because we have to raise money to do that and we don't want to. We don't want to spend the money, or we'd rather do something else, or we're distracted by what we see as a bigger problem at the community at the moment. So when I'm working with owners who are complaining about this failure on the part of their owners corporation, it is my job to explain to the owners corporation, especially if they're not legally represented, that this is an unavoidable legal duty. And even if they don't have the money, even if they don't want to, even if they don't feel the time is right, or they want to delay so that all of the lots can be done at the same time, for example, if we're looking at balcony repairs, they can't. This legal obligation requires them to act immediately. In New South Wales, that obligation is in section 106 of our Strata Schemes Management Act. I talked about that a little bit last week in our Ask Amanda Now session. You'll see the replay of that here on this page from a week ago, where I was asked, Amanda, what if I'm suffering loss? What if there is damage to my property? What if I have to store some furniture to get it out of the way? What compensation might I be entitled to? And our New South Wales legislation definitely has a provision that requires an owners corporation to pay damages to an owner who suffers reasonably foreseeable loss as a result of a breach of this duty to repair and maintain the common property. So I can tell you till the cows come home that the law is quite clear and quite well settled on this point, but we still have so many, at least in my world, probably not in the real world, but in my world, in our world, so many people still suffering from a lack of timely or any repair and maintenance to their buildings. And it has, in my experience, I've been around in this sector for about 20 years. In my experience, it has never been worse than it is at the moment. And I hear from strata managers that that's because it is so difficult to get contractors on site doing the inspections that need to be done in order to get the scope of work that needs to be prepared, in order to get the quotes that need to be considered and approved by the committee, in order to raise the money, approve the work, and get going. And it's a really difficult position for our committees and for our owners corporations at the moment, for those who are the ones who are wanting to be proactive, who are recognizing their legal duties and are saying, we want to get it done, but we can't get a contractor to site. They say they'll come and quote, they don't turn up. They say they'll quote, they cancel. They turn up, they inspect, we never get the quote. They're just so busy. Or then when the quote does come, it is incredibly expensive because of the rising costs of building works at the moment. And that was the second challenge that I pulled out that was named here on the page recently, the impact of inflation and rocketing building costs. There are some communities out there that have been saving for some years for significant capital works. For example, the replacement of a lift. I know in my building, we have a plan and a budget over the next 3 years to raise money to replace the lift. And we're going to have to revisit that at the moment because we're quite sure that ultimately the cost of replacement is going to be more than what we've been budgeting for. And that's just one example of one component of a building. If you're looking at having to replace roof waterproof membranes, for example, or do some remedial works on balconies to remove concrete cancer, to replace all the windows, to do some exterior painting, then the budget you might have set for that may now be nowhere near what it is actually going to cost you, and therefore looking at the necessity of a special levy or perhaps a strata loan to make sure that that money is in and that work can be done. Or what I think I'm being told managers are seeing and owners are seeing is that the work is just being delayed because the money is not there. So that is a concerning issue, and I think we may see more of that as we have rising interest rates and these costs continue to go up, and there is pressure on owners, financial pressure on owners from many different angles at the moment. We did hear from Tim Fuller from Strata Guardian in our Friday live chat 2 weeks ago that those buildings that are lucky enough to have a rainy day fund, to have some money set aside where they're saving for capital works, those buildings may be well placed to invest that money in a term deposit. Tim was letting us know about a product that he has specific for our strata communities, invested in a term deposit and try to take advantage of those interest rates from that perspective. Is certainly if your community is in that boat and looking at major capital works down the track, then that may want to be something that you can look at to try and prepare for this additional expense. Henry is saying, in regards to maintenance, I use this old saying, a stitch in time saves 9. Yep. If you can, if you can act promptly, Henry, and I'm not sure, I know you're in Victoria, I'm not sure what it's like down there, but I know I have clients also in my own building is suffering from this. I talk to strata managers who are saying, Amanda, the committee wants to do it. They want to do the work. They want to act fast. They recognize it, but we can't get an engineer to site. We can't get a plumber. We can't get a builder. We can't get a waterproofer. That's a big one at the moment because of all the rain that we've been having. We can't get waterproofers out to inspect or even a dry day to do the work. So it'll be interesting, I say from an academic point of view, to see what litigation may come out of this. I've been asked, is there any excuse for the owners corporation? Is there a legal excuse where an owners corporation can say, well, we tried and a contractor wouldn't come, or we tried and we couldn't get the dry day to do the work? The short answer is no. That's not really an acceptable excuse, or certainly our case law around this legal duty doesn't help you there if that's the excuse you want to rely on. It's quite a strict duty, and as I've said, absolute and unavoidable. So it will be interesting to see if owners do suffer and do then seek to recover their losses from their owners corporation, how these arguments, these facts will play out in our tribunal. Jan is saying, no, painting has been done in our 36-unit building for something like 20 years. The flaky paint, sorry for laughing, the flaky paint was scraped off about a year ago and the building looks terrible. There's no suggestion the committee is considering painting the building in the near future. Is there a timeline to Section 106? Yeah, I was asked this question about a block. I think there were 3 blocks. There are 3 blocks in the one community, quite large blocks. And there was a general meeting and 2 of the blocks had decided to vote for washing sugar soaping, I think, the external walls, washing them to improve their external appearance, and not painting. The painting was obviously much more expensive. And the majority of people in the third block, this is all the one strata scheme. The majority of people in the third block actually said, no, well, our place looks terrible. I don't think the sugar soaping is going to work for us. We actually want the painting done, and we think it needs to be done. And similar to your situation, Jan, I don't think it's your building, but similar to your situation, Jan, it hadn't been done for 20 years. Now, external paint has a life cycle. I'm not a painter, but it is only supposed to be there for a certain period of time. And after that time, it needs to be done again, because the paint protects the building as well. So if this is something that you want to look into further, Jan, and investigate, then a painter is the person to talk to about how often the exterior of our buildings should be painted, and what the lifespan is of external paint, and when it needs to be redone in order to protect the building. And then absolutely, yes, that does become a maintenance issue, and it does trigger the Section 106 obligation. Petrina is saying getting roofs quoted for in a flood area is virtually impossible. Yeah, it's really tough. Really, really tough out there. And we have, as I keep saying, as we've heard in our census results, more and more people buying into these really tough situations. Now, that was the third challenge that I pulled out of our discussion around challenges that I wanted to highlight, because it came up again and again, the education of new owners and new residents, to make sure that those who are coming in, who are buying into our buildings, are understanding how different this world is, how different it is to live in a unit than a house, the cooperative, collaborative relationships that must be built to be in a functional community, that it's not not necessarily, or shouldn't be perhaps, walk in the door, shut the door, and live in your own world. In order for a community to function well, everybody has a role to play. And I'm not sure that message is getting through to those who are new to apartment living. And the communities that I do see thrive are the communities where most people are on board that train and willing to do their bit to help out and to make the community a great place to live. So yes, that education piece is a big challenge. It's something that we've talked about for a long time. I think that we have improved on simply because of having the technology to deliver knowledge through platforms like this, through podcasts, through the internet, to be able to have places for people to go and gain that information and that education. It's a lot different now to what it was 20 years ago, but there's definitely plenty of room for improvement as well. Alrighty, good chat. It's been fun. I haven't been able to give you a solo hour for a while now, so I'm very pleased to be able to do that for you here today. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing a number of you at our Smooth Moves event in Sydney next Thursday. If there's anybody here who's already registered and you're going to be seeing me in person next Thursday, do drop me a comment below and let me know. I can look out for you. Some of you, I see your names here all the time on live and on our Ask Amanda Now as well. And I'm not sure that I've met you in person. And I say I'm not sure because I feel like I know you really, really well. But if I haven't met you in person, I would love to do that if you can make it to Bondi Junction next Thursday for our Smooth Moves event. Rochelle and Christina might pop that Rego link in our comments again today, right here. And if you want to hear more from me, I'm going to be on the radio. Going to be on the radio tomorrow morning, scheduled for 11:40 a.m. Sydney's 2GB, talking to Bill Woods, who is filling in for Chris Smith. And I don't think we're going to have an hour, but I think we'll have more than 2.5 minutes, more than what the Today Show gave me. So we'll get stuck into those Strata questions and challenges, and let's just keep on keeping on here, guys. I admire you for turning up, for spending the time to learn and to share, and I enjoy spending it with you. I'm seeing your comment there, David. Thanks, Amanda. Love your Friday afternoon podcast. Love seeing you here, David. Thank you. And Cheryl's going to set up a phone call with me. No worries, Cheryl. I get 2 bunches of flowers. 2 bunches of flowers so she can set up that phone call. I'm on to you, Cheryl. I'm on to you. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. It's been great to see you, and I will catch you all next time. Bye-bye.